Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is a shortish video which has been prompted by one of the viewers on YouTube, and he asked a question about raising up palms in particular, but also about other exotics. So I thought I would cover this in a bit more detail because in some of my previous videos I've probably roughly explained about it, but I thought I would explain in this video the benefits of doing this and to give you guys some examples, not just the types of plants, but how high I've raised these particular plants. So the first major advantage is that it is great for drainage. A lot of palms do not want to be sat into cold, wet ground in winter. So by mounding up the soil and then planting the palm in the top, you're allowing any heavy rainfall and just general water to move away from the plant's kind of root system. It's particularly good if you're on clay soil, as this does hold a lot of moisture and it tends to flood quite a lot in winter. So you might think, well, one of the disadvantages are in the summer, obviously any water is moving away from the root system as well. So in summer it's less of a problem because mainly these types of palms like Butea palms and Phoenix palms prefer it on the slightly drier side, so it is an advantage still with that. Bearing in mind the root system, this particular palm was planted pretty much so that the base of the plant, when the pot was taken off it, the base is at my ground level, and then obviously you've got the root system that raises up above that, and I've effectively mounded soil around it. The soil I generally use is kind of like a well-drained sort of composty topsoil. I do get this from work, and this is kind of a mixture of a sandy soil and composted material, and this is processed at work and we've always got a lot of it, so I'm very lucky in that sense. But a good quality topsoil is perfect for this. You want it more on the sort of sandier side rather than kind of too much loam or any like real clay content. So yeah, so that's in the summer and the winter, what happens with that. Another advantages are the exotics prefer to ideally get started as early in the season with their growing. In the UK, it's a shorter growing season, so any kind of extension of that is going to be really helpful for the plant. So what this essentially does is the soil that's raised up warms up quicker than the ground level, and yeah, so you're going to get a few extra kind of weeks of this soil warming up, which will stimulate the root growth, which will then stimulate the plant growth. Another advantage of it to do with the temperature is that cold air generally sinks, so you will find that the coldest of air will not pool around the base of the palm, it will kind of go lower down in, say, this section. So that's another advantage. And an aesthetic advantage is that you can make it kind of the mound look more interesting than just flat ground level. So aesthetically it kind of looks better, and also because palms are very expensive to buy, and they're generally sold on pot size and height, you're gaining kind of, well, this mound here is a couple of feet taller than my base level, so you've effectively added a couple of feet extra to the height of your palm. which is great. So you can essentially get a bigger palm for your money. So they are the main advantages, and I'll just show you a few areas where I've mounded it up to different degrees in height. So let's go and have a look around the garden now and look for those examples. So starting with the newly planted Batia palm, you can see if I put the camera as low as I can, you can see the change in elevation there. So this one is about 2 foot elevated. And on this other side, I've put things like logs in there, and I've also put some Japanese forest grass, which is going to tumble down the side of this bank and look really lush and green. So from the drive side, you can see probably about 1.5 feet in height difference, and you can see it looks really quite tropical sat on top of that mound. The mound does continue down the side of the drive here, but it's not mounded up as much. On this side of the drive, we have a Phoenix canariensis palm. Now this one's only raised up about 1 foot, I would say, on there. So it's got about 1 foot of soil mounded around it, giving it a little bit of extra height and giving it some extra nutrients, because under this yew tree here, you can see this yew tree is providing its kind of frost protection in winter, so it's also quite dry under this tree, so I basically wanted to add some extra kind of nutrients to it. You can see also that I've added these logs, which also mounds the soil up compared to the actual driveway level, so that's mounded up a little bit as well. And you can see on the other side, this is also slightly mounded up. So we have a Chamaerops volcano palm. This one's probably about 1/2 foot off of the driveway height, but again, it won't want sort of boggy conditions in winter time. Now I thought I'd just show you this example here. So this is a Trachycarpus fortunei, and this isn't mounded up. These generally prefer to be more at ground level. They're a palm that requires a little bit more moisture than the Batia palms and the Phoenix palms. So with these, they grow quite quickly as well, and they are mega hardy in the UK, down to pretty much about -15. So we don't have to worry about them being in cold, wet soil as much as the feather palms. The Chamaerops humilis palms are the Mediterranean fan palms, and again, they don't need to be lifted off the ground, so I've generally planted these ones at ground level. So yeah, these prefer to be kind of flat and on a flat ground, but they don't have to be. You can raise them up a little bit, but you just have to bear in mind that they might require a little bit more moisture in summertime. So here in the back garden, we have another Batia odorata, and this one's only slightly mounded up. So we have a edge that is higher than the lawn, and then I have mounded up a little bit of sand around this palm for kind of better drainage. And this has been in a couple of years now almost, and it is doing really, really well. We've got new spears coming out all the time. It pretty much it grows a little bit in winter, not as fast, but there is movement on it, uh, even when the weather is not very good. Here we have the third of the Boutia palms. You can see I've done them in all slightly different ways, but they are all raised up. This one's got some rocks in front of it and a little bit of planting around it. And yeah, it's raised up probably about a foot. So not as high as the other two. And you can see in here actually the roots going down. Let's see what roots in here as well. And I try to keep that a little bit covered. But obviously, yeah, any heavy rainfall and that, the plant will suck up the water from the very base of the root system, and the top of the root system will be a little bit drier, and any water can move away from the palm. Here we have the Butiagrus erythropatha palm, which is raised up again about half a foot with that similar kind of stone edging. And yeah, it's got a little bit frost damage this winter. I had about -5, almost -6, and it had a little bit of frost protection on there, but the main stem was heavily wrapped. But it's always the end of the fronds which tend to go a little bit brown in the coldest of temperature. Now, right next to this bed, not only is there the kitty cat, which has just come into the, come to see me. You can see I've also kind of done it with the yucca starters. Well, we've got a butterfly appeared. Good timing was that. Yeah, so the yucca rostrators here are about half a foot raised up, with sort of sand and grit, because they don't like to be sat in cold, wet soil either. And this has been worked really well. It's got normal topsoil underneath, and then the top area, I'll show you a little bit closer. You can see it is kind of sand and grit mixed together, which makes it well drained and generally moves water away from the plant when it would be getting too much. And probably lastly, I've got a Braha amata palm here, which is a blue Mexican fan palm. And although it likes a little bit of moisture in summer, again, it doesn't like to be sat in cold, wet soil. And so that's in quite a well-drained grit and kind of sandy, soily mixture, which I've put in the pot here. And obviously, being a pot, excess water can drain out the bottom of it. And similar to this Trifinax palm here, which is looking really good actually, can take really cold temperatures, but again, it's got that nice topsoil mixed with some sort of grit and a little bit of sand. So I know I've described this soil quite a lot, but I have got a tub of soil which I can give you an example to show you what that looks like, and hopefully the camera can pick up the actual sort of consistency of the soil. So let's go and have a quick look at that. So here we have the soil, and you can see it has plenty of sand in it, but it's also got some bigger sort of particles and kind of leaf matter and things like that. But ultimately, when you pour water on this, it drains through pretty quickly. It doesn't sit in the pot and flood or anything like that. And then if I want to add a little bit of extra drainage, I would add more sand and more grit to it, or even things like, you know, gravel that you'd get on a driveway. You can dig that in with this kind of soil. I guess it's like a John Innes think it's number 3. So it's quite nutritious as well, actually, this soil. So whatever I plant in it generally grows really, really well. And a lot of that is down to all these sort of decaying organic matter in there. So yeah, so that's the topsoil. And I'll just show you again here. We've got pretty much sand mixed with very fine grit on there. You can build raised beds from all kinds of material. You can do it with like brickwork and block work. You can use what I've used here, which is kind of like a slate effect cast concrete block on there, which just raises things up a little bit. Even being raised up kind of 5 inches, I would say, really, really helps on that. You can also use log sleepers, which you can see over here I've used around my rhubarb section. And again, it's sort of raised up by similar amount height wise. And because rhubarb usually likes lots of nutrition, I've dug in quite a lot of chicken manure, which I've used from my chicken coop. And that's dug in with that soil, and that produces a nutritious bed on there. So that's another advantage actually of doing a raised bed, is you can tailor the soil in that bed to the plants that you want to put in there. So that really helps on there. If you've already got well drained soil, I guess it's not a problem. You could just use your normal topsoil that we'd use from somewhere else in the garden. And to gain topsoil, if you don't want to buy it, there's other kind of options. You can do kind of undulations in the actual garden, so you can create lower areas and higher areas to sort of change the topography a little bit. You could also, if you're digging out a pond, you can use the soil to build up around the edge of the pond so that it's kind of like half, well, a little bit raised up. And this is what I've done with my pond here. It's, if we look at the front, I've used kind of loads of rocks and stuff and built the level up again about a foot at the front, and it's a little bit more level at the back. So yeah, I hope you found this video useful. We've got a beautiful sunny day today. I think next week I will do a proper garden tour of how the garden's looking in kind of mid-March, and I'll show you all the new plants that are starting to come up and anything that's kind of starting to make a move on there. So that will be in next week's video, and please don't forget to subscribe and click the like button, and I will see you on the next video.